welcome back to the dock on this hazy day. It's due to the Canadian wildfires, but they've kind of cleared out, so I think the video should be okay. But today we're going to be talking about lights, flashlights, but then eventually into weapon lights. So we get a lot of questions about those here on the channel. We have a whole playlist of just lights if you guys want to check it out with hundreds of videos on it. But I wanted to simplify it for kind of the new folks. So for folks who don't know, we've recently linked up with the folks over at Mug Club and are creating exclusive content over there. So we've done like an AR-15 build series, best first gun, things like that. Really oriented at folks who are new to all of this, because there is a lot to take in for sure. And what's been nice about being over there at Mug Club is I'm getting a lot of questions from people who aren't my typical audience. So that's a good reminder to go back to the basics every now and then, which is what we're trying to do today. And if you guys want to see exclusive Mug Club content, you can sign up at the link here on your screen. Additionally, the discount code will get you guys a free month of membership over there to try it out. And basically we're going to be going over lights, what you should look for, what different advertising terms mean, things like that. And then over on Mug Club, we're going to get into weapon lights specifically, because we might actually do scary things like mount them to guns, which of course is verboten on YouTube. So as always, my whiteboard is for me to kind of keep me on track as best as possible. So if you can't read it, that's okay. I have horrific penmanship, so even if you could read it, you probably couldn't read it. So we're going to talk about a few things and kind of just get into it, I guess. The first thing you're going to see when it comes to any type of flashlight in terms of advertising terms that will be on packages and descriptions, etc., is going to be lumens. It's a very simple term, but it doesn't really tell you a whole lot. So what lumens means is just simply the total output of the light. That's it. That's what it means. It means the total amount of light coming out of whatever flashlight, light bulb, etc., that you are looking at. Now, there's different ways to focus that light, which gives you a couple other things called lux and candela. Lux, we're going to leave that alone for this video. That would be perhaps a video for another day, but candela is a very important one because what candela is the intensity of the light that's coming out of the flashlight at a given point where it is measured. So what you'll typically hear that referred to as throw or hotspot when we're talking about different beam patterns that come out of lights. And here's my diagram. I don't know if we'll roll something in, but basically these tube here, these are our flashlights, and then the focused area here coming out of both of these lights is going to be what we call the hotspot. And then the sides that are on the side of it, rather, areas that are illuminated but are not quite as focused in terms of the light, is going to be flood or spill. You'll hear those terms used interchangeably. That is the basics of candela versus lumens. If you guys understand that, you'll understand more than probably 50% of people who are talking about lights on the internet. So there you go. There are a few different types of lights out there. So you will see incandescent, which was the majority of flashlights up until about probably 2010. And they're still out there. Like if you go to Lowe's or Home Depot and look at in their flashlight section, you will absolutely see incandescent flashlights still being made. And I don't really know why, but it's probably just because people don't know what they're looking at, and I guess the companies can still sell them. But incandescent's a very inefficient way to produce light versus the two other ways that we're going to talk about here. The most common by far is going to be LED, which is the same as like LED lights in your house. It is a very efficient way to produce a lot of light, which is important because if we're talking about flashlights, there's also a battery component to it. So the runtime is going to be affected by the type of emitter that you have. LED, of course, much more efficient for the same amount of light, will give you a lot longer runtime. And then the last one is going to be LEP, which is actually a laser. And as of when I'm recording this in 2023, there's not a ton of companies out there making LEP lights. That said, I think it's totally going to change. If I had to predict the future, which is what I'm doing right now, and I could be wrong, come back in 5 years and tell me I'm wrong if I am. But it's a very, just like LED is more efficient than incandescent, in a lot of ways, LEP, if you're talking about really high output lights, is more efficient if done correctly. So what do I mean by LEP? Let me grab one here for you just to kind of illustrate the point. It's kind of stuck between a chair. Sorry about moving the camera. All right. So this is an LEP light, for example. This one here is made by the folks at Z-Bolt, and if you look actually into the light itself, you will not see an emitter. You will not see what we would call a typical reflector. It just kind of looks like a weird bulb, but it's not a bulb, it's a laser. So when you actually turn the light on, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it here with the camera and the sun out, but that is a super focused beam. So the advantage of that is if you're actually measuring the candela of a LEP light without any sort of filter, which we'll talk about here in just a second, candela is usually going to be off the charts, particularly if it's using a similar battery source and a similar size versus an LED. Now, the downside of it is this area that we talked about with the spill. Because you're actually using a diffused laser, the spill is virtually non-existent, and it also doesn't have a traditional reflector, which is going to change how the output is reflected out of the light. So the way they get around that is to use these things. So this is a diffuser, and what it does obviously is diffuse the light. So if you look here, the light is being spread out tremendously versus what it would be without it. Very focused versus the diffused light. So I think those are going to become more and more popular as the years go on, but right now the overwhelming majority of flashlights out there are going to use LED technology to produce their lights. One thing we want to talk about when we're talking about why do you care about candela, there's two reasons. Number one, you want to be able to see, if you rather want to be able to see far away. So when we do testing here on the channel, basically across the lake here from the area that I standardized my testing on, it's about 130 yards to a little fishing shack that's over there. And to be able to see 130 yards at night and be able to clearly see it was something that was virtually impossible 20 years ago. Some of like the vehicle mounted lights could do it. You would see like search teams, like fire and rescue teams that had huge rigs that they would break out to be able to do that. And nowadays you can do that with lights that are this size. So it just really shows how far the technology has come. I mean, it's night and day versus what it used to be. Just a quick story time with Mike here. Many of you guys know I went through the police academy in the 90s. We all make mistakes, I get it. But just to give you a point of reference on that, we were talking about low light back then, and back then there weren't weapon lights like we think of today. I mean, they existed, but nobody used them. Just because they sucked. And back then, one of our instructors got in, I think it was a 3D battery cell mag light. If I remember correctly, it might have been a 4, don't quote me on that. But it was advertised as being 60 lumens. And I think the previous generation to that was 27 lumens. I mean, I remember this pretty well because they were like, it's double the power. And they were so excited about these new 60 lumen flashlights. And they were talking about how if you, it's something that we're going to talk about here in a second, if you used it indoors, you'd blind yourself. And the idea of that today is laughable. But back then, that really was a leap in technology, that 27 lumens to 60 lumens. And nowadays we're talking about, you know, literally 10,000 lumen plus lights that are out there on the market. Now, again, as we were talking about earlier, lumens doesn't really tell you a lot, but that does tell you a lot in terms of total output. The total output has just gone exponentially higher. And in terms of why you care about candela, like I said, if you want to be able to see at distance, that candela is important. A lot of times as well, if you want to drive through smoke, any type of mist that might be in the air, that candela also very important. Now there's certain conditions, like if it's very foggy, for example, that the candela can actually work against you. It's a similar type of thing that you can think of with using your low beams on your car, your fog lights on your car. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. The same is true with high candela lights and trying to push through barriers. But the most common one that we're going to see, and it's traditionally for law enforcement and military folks, but as our nation continues to decline, this is probably going to be more common for normal folks as well, to be encountering situations where you have to encounter, or rather overcome, photonic barriers. So what is a photonic barrier? It's a light barrier that is preventing you from seeing beyond it. That's the easiest way to explain it. So the most common one that we encounter in our daily lives is if you're driving at night and the oncoming headlights are coming at you from a car and you can't see behind it, or you can't see into the cab who's driving it. That's the photonic barrier created by their headlights. If you want to be able to see into that cab of the car, or if you want to be able to see beyond what's behind the car, the way to do it is to increase candela, and that's how you overcome photonic barriers. Now, like I was saying, typically this becomes important when talking about law enforcement aspects, but there are other aspects where it could be important. So that's another reason you might want Candela. Now, what's the downside of Candela, like a really high Candela light versus one that has more spill? Well, it is possible that if you are like inside your house, for example, in the middle of the night and you have a really high Candela light, let me just back up on that. So what is considered a high Candela light has changed over the years, just like the high lumen light, just like we were talking about. So, you know, if you watch videos of mine from 5, 6, 7 years ago, if we're talking about like a 5 to 10,000 Candela light, that was a really high Candela light back in the day. Nowadays, if we're talking about like a weapon light, for example, 5 to 10,000 Candela light is not that bright in terms of Candela. It's just not. We're getting up, one of the ones that we're gonna look at here in just a second from Surefire is going to be 90,000 Candela. So much more intense. But the downside of Candela is that if you are to wake up in the middle of the night, you know, and you're just, there's banging on your door or somebody just kicked your door in and you live in a house with white walls and you were to, for some reason, I don't recommend doing this, but if for some reason you were to turn that light on right on a white wall as you were right next to it or next to a mirror or whatever the case may be where the reflection could come back in your eye, it will limit your ability to see and you could sort of blind yourself, if you will. That said, there are techniques for getting around that. And I would also say that no matter what, just as kind of a broad overview, anytime it's nighttime, and this is something that people argue about this, but it's inarguable in my opinion, is that anytime at nighttime, if say you've been outside and it's dark for 5 minutes, if you turn a flashlight on, it will lower your ability, your eye's natural ability to see at night when you turn it off, right? That's kind of just common sense. Our eyes adjust to light. So the same is true indoors with a flashlight. That said, during the time that you're actually using that flashlight, your ability to see at night goes up tremendously as long as you use it correctly. So that is sort of the danger of Candela, if you will, is using it incorrectly. Now, one thing I will say versus a very spilly or very floody light is that you can't, as a human being operating the light, you can't take a really high flood, a very spilly light and focus the beam. There's no way you can do it, right? It's not possible in the moment. You can't go back and re-engineer the reflector. But a light that is a very high Candela light, you can make it a spilly light. So you can create spill and flood from high Candela. You can't create high Candela from flood and spill. So different techniques for doing so. Like if you're indoors, you can orient the light at the ceiling. It's called umbrella lighting. And that way, that light will be reflected all around you, creating a good spill. So that's something to keep in mind as well when you're determining which lights you want to get. Just kind of a basic overview. If you were somebody who is a search and rescue team and you're searching, you know, this lake, let's say, and you wanted to search the shoreline, you would want a higher Candela light. If you're a mechanic and you're operating under, you know, the hood of a car in an engine bay, you're going to want a really floody light. For everybody else, you're going to be somewhere in between. And I suppose with that, let's talk about the actual nighttime experiment that we're going to do here to show you what's going on. So a practical exercise, if you will. So I selected some lights that should hopefully show you guys what I'm talking about. Now the downside is, again, as I'm when I'm recording this, all the Canadian smoke is down here on the East Coast, and that will impact the images you're about to see because the smoke is just everywhere right now. The sun's pretty bright, so it's kind of getting through it, but at night it gets a little thick. So just know that with the images you're about to see at night. And then additionally, cameras, although the ones that you're about to see are going to be set on manual. Cameras have a hard time when you get to a really bright spot. It tends to wash it out and make it look white so you don't see the details on the camera like you would with your human eye. Additionally, cameras don't do a really good job with dim lights. In between, they do pretty well at reflecting what you actually see. So that's sort of just a caveat for you. But getting into lights that we brought out for this example. So we have this light here, which is a Streamlight Wedge. It's designed for everyday carry. So it's not a super throw light, but it is a 1000 lumen Streamlight light, which is important for what we're going to talk about here. And then we have this light here, which is a Streamlight TLR9, a relatively new offering from the folks at Streamlight. This is a 1000 lumen Streamlight light, but it is 10,000 Candela. Then we have this light here, which is one of the most popular, if not the most popular, pistol light on the planet. This is the Streamlight TLR1 HL High Lumen. that's DHL stands for, and it is a 1,000 lumen light that has a candela of right around 20,000. So double the candela, but the same amount of lumens. So as we go through what you're about to see here in just a second, should be pretty evident how those different terms play out in real life. Similarly, we grabbed a Surefire X300 Ultra. This is a 1,000 lumen light as well. And then we grabbed this guy here, which is a Surefire X300 Turbo. So this one's actually only 650 lumens, but it's 66,000 candela. So much, much brighter in terms of the focus hotspot than this one is, with a much more diffused reflector. Then, as if that wasn't enough, I'm going to give you more. So, this is the Surefire Dual Fuel Scout. So this takes 18650 rechargeable batteries versus CR123A batteries, which are not rechargeable. But this one, relatively larger Scout light from Surefire, and we're going to be comparing that to the Surefire 340 Mini Turbo. So the Mini Turbo is going to be right around 90,000 candela with the batteries that we have in it, and it should show you guys the difference between candela and lumens, because this is a higher lumen light, but the beam pattern will look very different, as you're about to see. Here's the Streamlight handheld light, 1,000 lumen, but not a lot of candela. I am holding a gun right now. You guys can see how the beam pattern looks on me versus over there on the mannequin. And then can you distinguish that I have now a cell phone in my hand versus the gun? Now we have the TLR9, which is a 1,000 lumen light, but is only 10,000 candela. And I am holding a gun, not sure how that looks on camera. Again, just look at me, how it looks on me, and then how the person off to the side looks, how much coverage you have of both with a different beam pattern. And then now I'm holding a cell phone. Now we have the Streamlight TLR1HL, probably the most common weapon light in America. It's 1,000 lumens, just like the TLR9 that you guys were just looking at, but this one has 22,000 candela, so it should be a little bit brighter. Now I can tell you, to my eyes, this one is starting to get somewhat uncomfortable to look at, and again, I'm holding a gun in my hand right now. Contrast that with the cell phone that we're holding now. Now we have the 1,000 lumen Surefire X300 Ultra, not the Turbo, and I am holding a gun in my hand. Again, just get a look at the beam pattern compared to what we're going to see with the Turbo here in a second. Again, now we're holding a cell phone. Let's switch over to the Turbo.
Well, that's like gonna hurt your eyes.
It is. That's the point. Now we're looking at the pattern out of the X300 Turbo. It's only 650 lumens, but this one's 66,000 candela. I can tell you, looking into it, even at this distance, it is messing with my eyes. It is not comfortable to look at all, but there should be a different amount of situational awareness that you're getting with it oriented at me versus the dummy with the previous X300. So that's the pro and con of throw versus flood. And I am holding a gun right now. And then now, of course, we switched over to the cell phone. Not sure how it looks to you guys, but again, it should look a little bit different. Now we're moving on to the Surefire Scout series. This is the Surefire dual fuel with the rechargeable 18650 in there, and not really terrible in terms of looking at it from my perspective, and I'm holding a gun. Now again, for the contrast, switch over to the cell phone. You guys should see how it looks. Now let's switch over to the Surefire Turbo. Now you guys are looking at the output from the Surefire Turbo Scout light. Again, just like with the X300 Turbo, this is painful to my eyes. I really kind of can't open them. It's uncomfortable at this point with all of that candela. I'm not sure how the spill looks, but you guys should be very easily able to identify that I am holding a pistol in my hand versus the cell phone. And again, here we have the cell phone. Now I want to talk about photonic barrier. So in my hand, I have the Streamlight Wedge. I'm being illuminated by the Surefire Scout dual fuel. And this is, again, not a high candela light, so sometimes you want your light to be able to overpower another light, whether it be car headlights or whatever the case may be. So I'm going to turn it on. You guys will see what that looks like. Again, we're looking at the Streamlight dual fuel right now. And again, we have the Wedge on high. Now let's switch over to the Turbo.
I can't really see you.
Tan one?
Like when you shine that at me, I couldn't really see it at all.
That's the point. Once again, now I'm being illuminated by that Surefire Turbo that is insanely bright in terms of candela, and we'll hit it with the Streamlight Wedge.
I can see a lot better.
That's because it has higher candela and you're overcoming what's called the photonic barrier. As we were talking about before we cut to those nighttime shots, the camera has a hard time with kind of showing overcoming photonic barriers and stuff like that, because when there's really intense light, cameras don't do well with it. But my wife's reaction there was genuine. My wife doesn't know any of this stuff. She doesn't watch any of my videos, but she was my assistant there, and her reaction to the photonic barrier is exactly what you see in real life. So it was actually good that we caught her on camera talking about that. But with that, guys, we're going to close the video out here on YouTube and Rumble, and then of course we're going to go over to Mug Club right after this, and we're going to talk about weapon lights, selecting weapon lights, because there's a lot that goes into it. There's pistol lights, rifle lights, multi-use lights, different mounting systems, all those sorts of things that we can't show on YouTube anymore because it's 2023 and the tech oligarchs say what they say. So with that, thank you all for watching. If you're not subscribed, you like this type of video, if you learned something, hit that subscribe button. If you've done that and you're not rather seeing 2 to 4 videos a week here, you can sign up for my email at the website here on your screen. This email goes out once a month. It has all of the videos since the previous month's email went out. So that way there's no big tech giant censoring your eyes from my content. I was suspended in January, as many of you guys know, from YouTube, but I still made videos. They still went out on Rumble and elsewhere, and they went out in my email. So that way, again, if you guys want to see my content, it was sent out to you regardless of what the big overlords do. Additionally, if any of these lights, ammo, optics, etc. go on sale, they will go out in my daily deals email. You can sign up for that at the website here on your screen as indicated. It goes out every day, and it has 6 to 8 of the best deals that we find around the internet. If it's in that email, it's the best price I know of on that item anywhere on the internet, because I've done the price comparisons for you. So hopefully it saves you some time, saves you some money, and I think that's about it. Thank you all for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video. Now piss off, YouTube. That's all I need for you.
All right.
Do you learn something about lights?
There's a word candela.
Yeah. And if you want to overcome a photonic barrier, i.e. a light pointed at you, you want high candela.